In cities across the US, furious Americans continue to take to the streets.
I am scared as a Texan, and I'm scared as a woman, and I'm scared as a Mexican.
After 5 decades, abortion in the US is no longer federally protected.
Today, the Supreme Court of the United States expressly took away the constitutional right from the American people. They didn't limit it. They simply took it away.
It's now the domain of the states, and many have trigger laws effective immediately. Abortion is today a felony in places like Kentucky and Missouri, with more to follow soon. Women are already being turned away from clinics and will now have to travel huge distances to other states, or at worst, seek out dangerous, off-the-books alternatives.
Today's news is devastating, but we have been planning for this moment. We don't want to let our patients think we are surprised. We are not.
It may seem like a bolt from the blue, but ever since Roe v. Wade came into effect in 1973, the conservative movement has been working steadily to dismantle it. And a few years ago, everything came together.
Thank you.
During his presidency, Donald Trump made the makeup of the Supreme Court more conservative with his 3 nominees.
Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett.
And in their confirmation hearings, all 3 assured the Senate that they considered Roe to be settled law.
I would tell you that Roe versus Wade, decided in 1973.
It is an important precedent of the Supreme Court.
Calls for its overruling have never ceased, but that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled.
On Friday, all 3 voted for Roe to be overruled.
Yesterday, the court handed down a victory for the Constitution and, above all, a victory for life.
I just had tears streaming down my face, just tears of, relief, joy.
Anti-abortionists and many Republicans are celebrating.
This is amazing!
But polls show the majority of Americans support legal abortions. For many of them, a fight they felt had been long won is now beginning anew.
Catherine Colbert is one of the leading legal voices on reproductive rights in America, and she joins us now. Catherine, abortions are no longer federally protected. What's the immediate impact there?
Well, within the next month to month and a half, we expect to see somewhere close to 25 states ban abortion at some point during pregnancy. Probably most of those will be banning abortion either through the complete pregnancy or from very early weeks. We're talking about 700 to 750,000 women who get abortions every year in the United States. And so we're talking probably about 40% of those abortions will be impacted. The real practical reality is women won't stop having abortions. They'll just have to travel hundreds of miles to get it, find medication abortion, which is the abortion pill, through illicit means and subject themselves to potential criminal prosecution. And frankly, suffer a whole range of health effects that are unnecessary, particularly given the fact that this is yesterday was a perfectly legal medical procedure.
Catherine, 30 years ago, you stood before the Supreme Court and successfully argued that for women to have the right to access safe abortions. Have the opponents been lying in wait, or do you think America's just changed?
I think our opponents have been organizing for 50 years, and their success in infiltrating the Republican Party, in making this a huge issue for the Republican Party, and the success of Donald Trump's election and his ability to appoint Supreme Court justices makes the difference. I say all the time that winning in the Supreme Court is a lot like Sesame Street. You got to learn to count. And there's only one number that matters, and that's 5. Okay? Today, the anti-abortion movement has been successful in finding and putting into power 5 ultra-conservative justices, and therefore they have the power to make these changes, and they're going to do so. The only way we're going to change that is to win that power back.
Catherine, why do you think they're so determined to do this?
Well, I think for some of them, it is a deeply held belief. But for most, I think it's all about power. And the Republican Party is held together. It's kind of weird coalition of differing groups, from the evangelicals to the more conservative people who are libertarians. To, they have a lot of different blocks. And the thing is that the abortion issue holds them all together. But I don't think they'll stop with abortion. Once they get what they want on abortion, they're going to move on to contraception, and they're going to move on to eliminating gay marriage, and they're going to move on to hatred against trans people, and they're going to move on to banning books. I mean, this is an ideological agenda from the very conservative right wing of the United States that isn't going to stop with this one victory. It's going to be until we're able to wrest power from these ultra-conservatives. We're going to see continuing attacks for a whole host of reasons.
This is a battle that you've been fighting for decades. How did you feel when that decision came down?
Well, I have been expecting this decision since the court accepted the case because I could count to 5. But as someone said to me earlier today, there's a difference between expecting your car to crash and actually crashing. So, of course, it's very disturbing. To me, the most disturbing fact is what it does to hundreds of thousands of women across this nation who no longer have the freedom to decide when, whether, with whom, and how they have children. And that's the most important decision in most women's lives. It is the most important decision for most families. And I think that to take that away after 50 years in which millions of people have relied upon those rulings is extraordinarily disturbing, one that I just think is unconscionable. We need to express our grief, but at the same time, take action to reverse it.
Do you still feel hopeful?
I do, but it's not a short-term hope. Okay, I'm hopeful because I think we have, it's so important to so many people that eventually things will turn around. And I think that obviously the best antidote to despair, as Joan Baez said, is action. So I think people will start to take action. But I think we need to learn that this isn't a fight that's going to be won in a year or two, or one election or two elections. We have to be committed to making these changes over our lifetimes, and frankly, my daughter's lifetime and my granddaughter's lifetime. And I think eventually we will win. I'm hopeful it'll be sooner rather than later, but we're in it for the long haul because that's what it's going to take.
Catherine, thanks so much for talking to us tonight.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
This really knocked the wind out of me, because even though we are far away, it impacts all women, because it says that there are people still that think that we are incapable of making decisions about our own body. We couldn't possibly know what was best for us, and we shouldn't be allowed to do that. And I think I often think to myself, gosh, I'm glad that I'm living my life in the time that I'm alive rather than my mum or my grandmother. But then this just reminds you, actually, I'm still not considered an equal. I still, this kind of stuff really hurts as a female. It's just so insulting.
Yeah, and like Catherine said, this is not something that's just going to affect some people. This is going to affect all people and all women around the world. And this sort of attitude reverberates, and it doesn't just stay with women and reproductive rights. This moves on to human rights in general for the most marginalised people that in the world. And so it is really concerning. Being a parent should always be a choice. And the idea as a woman, you don't have a choice. In that situation, if I was pregnant and I had to have the child and I didn't have a choice, the man always has a choice. He can decide, am I going to support that woman or am I not? Or am I going to go and live my life? Why do you get a choice and I don't? It seems so unfair. Yeah, completely. But like Catherine said, there's hope, and we have to keep fighting. Yeah, definitely.